everybody who is a senior for whom this is actually literally their last class at Berkeley, please stand up. All right, you may sit. So this last class is partly to summarize where we've been. It's partly to talk about the future. It's partly to talk about some of you who will be graduating, moving into the wide world. The wide, wide world. Which brings me to you. And the question is, what are you going to be doing? I am particularly fond of 4 paintings. They're paintings that were done by Thomas Cole, who is a 19th century American painter. When I was an undergraduate, I was an art history major. I don't know whether that's irrelevant to you. It probably is. Why should you care what I was? But in the National Gallery of Art in Washington, I would go in there and I'd look at these 4 paintings, and the 4 paintings would give me some degree of sustenance, and I'm going to share them with you because they have something, I think, to do with your futures as well. This is the first of the 4 paintings. This is the early years. This is you in a kind of stylized way. And this is you coming out of the depths of whatever you came out of. And but you're young. You're just beginning. You look at that wonderful little boat you are on, and you're glowing. You're glowing with excitement, and you're glowing with anticipation. And the future. Look at the future. It's beautiful. I mean, it's just gorgeous. All this vegetation, and the sky is beautiful, and everything is beautiful. It's really a lovely, lovely, lovely time. And maybe you can help clarify. How would you describe your early years? I would describe, you say, before Berkeley as either blissful, blessed, extraordinary, fortunate, or uneventful, normal, even boring, or challenging, difficult, problematic, or a real struggle, extremely hard, amazing, I made it through. And because of the magic of clickers, it's anonymous, so you can be completely honest, and nobody will know, except I will keep a record. No. No, I won't know. It's anonymous. What do you think? Click. Start now. Now, and let's see what your early years. 47% of you were blissful, blessed. And then we have about 23% of you uneventful, normal, and even boring. Well, that's not that bad. And then about 19% of you did face challenges. It was difficult. It was problematic. And 11% of you, it was a real struggle. It was a real struggle. And you've made it this far. And that's great. But let's take a look at the second of Thomas Cole's paintings. And this is Embarking on Your Own. Now you see here the angel. There was an angel actually behind the figurative little you coming out of the mountain. And now the angel bids you goodbye. You're graduating from Berkeley. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. And you're off on your own, and here you are. You still have this little figurative angel and the chalice, and you still have your hand is still on the rudder, and the future looks still very, very bright. There's a mountain there, and look at that. There is a huge, wonderful, lovely something temple. You are going to be on your own. You are going to be on your own. It's not going to be quite like what it was, but look at that river. It just looks wonderful, and there's gentle rolling hills, and so let's ask. You would describe yourself now as hopeful and upbeat, with quite a good idea of where you're heading and what you want to do, or hopeful but no real clue where you're heading and what you will be doing, or anxious and worried about what the future holds for you. What do you think? Let go. And let's see what you think. Well, most of you, I mean, a lot of you are very hopeful. 37% are upbeat, but most of you are hopeful, but you don't have a clue. But that's okay, you know, hopeful without a clue is fine. But we've got 19% of you are anxious and worried about the future. But remember, you are graduates of one of the best, if not the best university, certainly the best public university in the world. So, or you soon will be, you're not yet. So let's take a look at picture number 3, and let's see what is in store for you. Now, I don't mean to suggest that it's going to necessarily be quite as difficult as this person is facing, but let me just say and bring your attention to the fact he is no longer, or she no longer has his or her hand on the rudder. Do you notice? It is now rudderless. And there's some praying going on. And that beautiful river has now turned into a roaring rapids. This is really, and no longer do you have a lot of greenery. In fact, everything is has turned to parched awfulness. And everything, it's getting stormy. There will be times like this. It's not going to be like this, but there will certainly be times like this. In fact, let's find out something that may be important for you to know with regard to these upcoming rudderless, difficult times. You would describe yourself as flexible and resilient, easily able to bounce back from defeats, or reasonably steady, but you can get thrown by setbacks or failures, and you can take a while to regain your footing. Or I'm incredibly hard on myself. I take every downturn very personally, and I absolutely hate to fail. Which are you? Go. And let's see how you are going to deal with the inevitable failures, the inevitable adversities. Well, we've got most of you, you think of yourselves as reasonably steady, but you can get thrown, and we all can, by setbacks and failures. And some of you are very flexible. A remarkable number of you are flexible and resilient. You think you are. Wait. Ha ha. And then there are... And then there's some of you, there are 22% of you are very, very hard on yourself, and you take every downturn very, very personally, and you absolutely hate to fail. Well, let me just suggest to you that although Thomas Cole's painting slightly overstates it, resilience is going to be more important to you than whether you fail, because you are going to fail. Can I deliver that upbeat message again? You are going to fail. Things will fail. If you are taking any risks at all, and I hope you take reasonable risks, you are going to fail. And the question is not so much whether you fail, the question is how quickly you kind of stand up, dust yourself off, and say, well, you know, that was a noble experiment. And many of you have done so well so far because you hate to fail, and there have been hoops that you've jumped through all your life, and you've jumped through them. That's why you're here. That's why some of you, most of you are just about to graduate. But let me suggest to you that there are fewer and fewer hoops to jump through. That is, there's fewer and fewer people out there giving you the hoop to jump through. More and more, you're going to have to be designing the hoop that you're jumping through. Do you get me? And so it becomes more subjective whether you fail or you don't fail. And it's not just your work and it's not just your career, but it's also your personal lives as well. It's not always going to go easily. And finally, let's look at Thomas Cole's last, fourth painting. Well, it's not actually the end. But, you know, there will be we used to talk about it as retirement, but fewer and fewer people retire. But you get to eventually you get to a place, and this is an idealized place where you're not even standing anymore. The angel is no longer even there on the front. The rudder is gone. But the angel comes back in this kind of 19th century allegorical way. The angel comes back to you, and look, there's another angel, and then what is there? I don't know. I don't know. That was a 19th century view of the voyage of life. But it is not completely devoid of reality. And the question is, when you get to this stage, what do you want? What do you want to look back on? What kind of life would you like to have had? Hard for you at the ages of 22 or 23 or 24 or 19 to make this kind of intellectual or emotional leap, but to be completely honest, I think I'll most want to look back on my life and say, A, I was famous and celebrated, or B, I made the world a better place, or C, I had wonderful friends and family, or D, I had great wealth. Well, that's interesting. I mean, there are 8 of you who have absolutely no sense of what you'd like to look back on, or at least these don't capture it. But for most of you, and it's very, very close, 45% to 44%, 45% you want to make the world a better place, and others of you, 44%, I had wonderful friends and family. And this is artificial because I'm asking you to choose one, and probably you want a combination, and most of you, but here's what you're choosing. But famous and celebrated, 46 of you want most of that. And 22 of you want to look back and say you had great wealth, and you are deluding yourselves. No, you're not. I'm not going to make any judgment at all. This is one of my favorite quotes from Mary Oliver. Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? And most of you are still at an early stage in your one wild and precious lives. Some of us, like me, are pretty much at the other end, or at the later stage of our wild and precious lives. I'd like to think not the end. But your plan, what is it you plan to do with your wild and precious life? And a lot of it has to do with self-knowledge. And you're not going to actually get a great deal of self-knowledge until you are out in the world and you are going to begin to accumulate more and more of it. But the old career ladder was fairly direct. That is, the old career ladder, you moved upward. And it was already there. There were kind of bumps in the old career ladder, but that old career ladder, as we have alluded to before, it was a sequence of fairly predictable steps upward. I mean, you graduate college, and then you move into this organization, and then you move up predictably, and within the same organization or industry, or with regard to the same skill set. It was not only predictable, but by a certain age, you could plan pretty much where you were going to be. And you added responsibilities, and you added a widening span of control with regard to people who were working with you. And it was all not perfect, but it was fairly easy to anticipate. But now it's different. The career ladder is, in most senses and most meaningful ways, it's now disappeared. What you're going to be facing is much more like a spiral. And by spiral, I simply mean that you are going to have different roles, or you're going to be working in different organizations. You may start in one organization for maybe a year or two, and then you may move to a different organization. In fact, these days, most people in their lifetimes are working in 8 or 9 or 10 or 12 different jobs sequentially, and you're not going to be with the same organization, but you also might have different roles. And there are going to be different skill sets that you adapt. Right now, your basic skill set, I assume, your basic skill set is thinking and writing. And maybe you have some scientific or maybe some mathematical skills along the way, but that is only a little piece of the skill sets you will need, and you will be accumulating more skill sets. You're going to be learning a great deal on the job. And you are going to be adding judgment and insight. More and more, you're going to be paid for, or you're going to be known for, your judgment, your insight, your ability to look at a situation and say, I recognize that. I know what that pattern means. So for you, the kind of work you think you most enjoy, is it interacting in meetings or on the phone? Is it thinking, analyzing hard problems, or is it advocating, selling, making a case? What do you think in terms of your own limited, right now, self-knowledge? Why don't you go? Many of you really enjoy interacting. You can see yourselves in meetings and on the phone and dealing with a lot of different people, and your way of thinking about your working life is best assumed as interaction. And then most of you, not surprisingly, because of you're just finishing your education, your formal education. And so your way of thinking, your way of imagining what you will be doing is analyzing hard problems and thinking critically. And I hope you do. But that is only a very limited way of understanding the possibilities. And then about 17% of you think of that yourself as advocating or selling or making a case. But it turns out that most of you are going to be doing all three of these. And your success, quote unquote, is probably going to be based upon your ability to do all three of these pretty well. Every one of us has what I call a personality drug. How do I define a personality drug? I define a personality drug as something that is insatiable. We can't get enough of it, number one. And number two, it continues to cause us problems. In other words, we are never satisfied because we can't get enough of it, and it's like bears and honey. We just want more and more and more of it, but it causes us to lose our judgment, or it causes us to somehow not be smart about what we actually should be doing. Now, these are the most common personality drugs. One is impatience. I want it now. Another one is, I want to be loved. A third one is, I want to be in charge. A fourth is, I want to be the smartest person in the room. And a fifth one is, I want to feel safe. Now, one of the most important aspects of self-knowledge that you can acquire, that is knowledge about yourself, is what your personality drug is. And the importance of understanding your personality drug is so that you understand when you are approaching situations where that personality drug can cause danger. And let's just see what your personality drug is. I love you. But then we have the outliers who don't care about being loved as much as wanting it now, or want to be in charge, or want to be the smartest, 13% of you, or 14%. You want to be safe. There's no right answer. But the right answer is knowing it, being aware of it. Could be two or three of these. Finally, in terms of your priorities. Now, this is a hard one, so I'm going to give you time to think about this. This is a sort of a Venn diagram, and this one priority is making money. And obviously, you need to make money, most of you, to live on. And then a second priority may be changing the world for the better. And then a third priority may be having work that's fulfilling and meaningful to you. Now, all of these are going to be in play, probably. But the question is what the order of the priorities is. So let's see what your priorities are. Go. You want, first of all, having work that is fulfilling and meaningful, and then you want to make money, and then you want to change the world for the better. But close second is number E, which is you want work that is fulfilling and meaningful, and you want to change the world for the better, and you want to make money. Interestingly, work that's fulfilling and meaningful to you is a big deal for most of you, and I understand that. And then there are some of you for whom it is a kind of a different priority. There's some of you for whom making money is important. Again, there's no right answer, and this is again, a kind of a forced choice, but it's the kind of forced choice that I just want to get you to think about. You can revise these priorities. I hope you do think about these priorities. Because the ultimate question is, you have to fill it in. There are no more slides. When we got together for our first class, I told you that I had two goals. My first goal, I told you at the time, was that you leave this class thinking more deeply about the issues of wealth and poverty and inequality and what's happening to who gets what and why. That whatever preconceptions you came into this class with, I just wanted you to question them. I wanted this class to force you to think harder about all of this. But I also had a second goal, to inspire you to get involved, to be engaged. Now, sometimes people ask me, why do I spend so much time teaching? Why is it so important to me? And it is really important to me for a very simple and direct reason. And that is because I believe in you. I believe that some of you are going to make a big difference. Some of you are going to change your communities. Some of you are going to change your organizations. Some of you are going to change maybe your regions, your states. Some of you might even change your nations, and who knows, some of you might even change the world, all for the better. And so I can think of no thing that I could do that is more worthwhile for me to do than to give you permission and license. You don't have to be a Secretary of Labor. You don't have to be a President of the United States to be a leader. Leadership starts with you. It starts now. So before I get to the very final benediction, I want to say how much I feel truly privileged and humbled to have been your teacher this semester. I want to also ask probably the finest and most dedicated group of GSIs in history to come up on stage with me. And let's give them all a big applause. And so as to you, may your days be filled with wonder, and may your work be filled with meaning, and may your lives be filled with joy. Thank you all. We need music. Working 9 to 5, what a way.